What's up, guys? Hey, Jerry Green here. I'm going to talk about a summary of the virtual wholesale process. Obviously, to be able to go through all of it would be a very long video. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the summary of a virtual wholesale process. So let's think about this. First of all, guys, I want you to understand one of the key things that we have to look at is, number one, is change of your mindset. What I mean by that, and changing the mindset from going on an appointment to working virtually. That's number one. And when you do that, what happens is, if you've always done appointments before and now you're going virtual, one of the things you struggle with a lot of times is, how can I do that virtually? I've never seen the property, and all these things come up in your mind. The only reason those come up because they are limiting factors in your mind. And how do I know that? Well, because I've done that for years, and I used to believe that too. So what I realized was that really, if you think about it, when you're going through a sales process and you're working with a client, and let's just say you got a seller you're working with and you build a connection and you're moving along and everything's clicking very good, and you're getting towards the end of the sales process and you're at the point where you guys are really ready to put something together and work a deal here together. Well, you get to that time, and then what typically people do right now, that a lot of people that go on appointments, is what you're doing is you actually stop the sales process. You think about that. And what do I mean by that? Well, the reason you stop it, what happens is you'll say, great, you know what, Sally, I'll come out and take some time to take a look at the property. And then when I walk through the property, I'll be able to tell you what I can do more for you. So what you're doing then is really stopping that whole process. And I used to do that all the time. And it was really just, again, my mindset. Because if you already made the connection with the seller, you've done everything else that you're supposed to do, building the rapport, finding out, any type of deal destroyers, anything like that, and you've taken them through the whole process of things, and you're right there. Why do you pull back? Why do you stop the process? You stop the process because that has basically been a habit of yours and a conditioning that you created prior. So what I'm looking at is how to overcome that. So you overcome that by, one, setting things up correctly on the front end. So what I mean by that, basically, if I go in and I'm working with a seller, let's say that I always call it setting the focus. Basically, sometimes it's called setting the stage, whatever you want to call it. But when you're basically getting on the phone originally with the client, you're asking them, say, hey, look, you got 5 to 10 minutes. I'd love to talk to you about your property. Tell me a little bit about what's going on. And everything sounds good. I'd love to take a look at your property. Now, that's a typical appointment one. So what you notice, the last part, what are we going to do? The action is we're going to take a look at the property. So what I want to do is, on the virtual side of things, one of the first things you have to do is change that last action point. Instead of saying, love to come take a look at your property, say, you know what, hey, if you got 5-10 minutes, okay, or 10-15 minutes, whatever you set it, but I like to try to keep it that somewhere for 5 to 10 minutes, because that's really where you should be unless you're going to go deeper. I'd love to talk to you about your property. Everything sounds good here. I'd love to get the process started with you today. Now, notice that I didn't say that I'm going to come look at the property. What I said was, I'd love to get the process started with you today. That's a key component. So that's what you got to look at, is how we can get the process started today. So once you do that, then it's opening it up to run through the whole sales process. Now, I'm going to go through all that, but then when you go through the whole sales process, then once you do that, guys, the next thing you got to really look at is you got to then take to the next step, and that is actually putting a deal together with the seller, okay? And what I like to look at is more creating a solution for them. It's all about creating that solution. So I look at a property that I've just shown you right back here real quick. So this is one we've been working on, and the team put together here. It's all done virtually. We basically put the deal all under contract, just what I was talking about, walking through that sales process. And guys, when we're doing this here, once you get to that point where the seller is ready to go, now this is something that takes some practice and takes some skills. And that is, when you're working with that client, remember I said don't stop the sales process? Get to the point where, since it is a process, okay, remember, you're going to start the process with the seller, invite them to basically come in and look at the paperwork with you, which is really your contract. So what I'm saying on that is, if you're talking to someone and you're working to deal with them, just like we did on this one here, Don't be in a position where you're going to turn around and say, hey, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send you this contract, and then if you can open it up, send it back to me by tonight or tomorrow. You do that, you're gonna be chasing contracts. Don't chase contracts. What you wanna do is you wanna be in the position where that contract doesn't even exist until you get that person on the phone and work the deal with them. And then what happens is, in the moment that you both agree upon things and let them know what you can qualify their property for, then guys, at that moment in time, you're creating the document. And then you are creating it in the moment with them being on the phone. And then you're sharing with them that document at that time. And at that moment in time, when you're sharing that with them, you're walking them through that electronically to basically ink the contract, or really okay the paperwork, I like to say. Think about that. So what you're doing is, ultimately, the goal is to be in the position where you're not getting them off the phone. A lot of times you can do this in one phone call. Now, if you have to, could you do this? Could you turn around and say, I'll tell you what, let me put some things together here real quick. I'll call you back in 5 minutes, and then let's go ahead and walk through the paperwork together. If you need a little more time, put the paperwork together, you could do that. But ultimately, the goal is to always be in the position where it's if you do things right, where it's a simple agreement, it's a matter of just putting it together and doing it right while you got them on the phone. That way you're never hanging up, guys. Again, whenever you break communication, whenever you stop that, that's stopping the sales process. I want you to stop focusing on breaking the sales process and continue it, because most of the time you can carry it through in one call and complete the sales process. Not every time, but you'll find that the better you get at this, the more you can execute that way. Now, a lot of times you might have to go to a follow-up process, but if you're doing the follow-up is because you never got to that point of putting the deal together. Follow-up should not be because you gave them a number and they said no. That shouldn't be that case. You shouldn't even get to a number unless you're ready to take it to the next step. Then we'll go ahead and put together an agreement. But the agreement should not be until they've already said yes. So that means that that paperwork is done right in that moment in time while you're on the phone with them. Just like this deal here is exactly what we did. Now we're able to push that right out to our wholesale buyers across the country, and we basically from that time there go ahead and get a contract on to the sales side of things, basically our assignment of contract. So guys, that's just a quick summary here of things, but it's basically a summary of the virtual process. And like I said, it starts in your head, and then it comes down to how you present things to the client. Then it comes down to making sure that you don't stop the sales process, and you create the agreement in the moment, and you don't send contracts. And if you do that, right there alone will drastically change the results of you working deals on a virtual basis. Hope this helps. Guys, comment down below. Give me a thumbs up here. Let me know that you enjoyed this. And if you would, subscribe to my channel. We'll talk to you later.